Hello and welcome to another WeAreDevelopers Live, the last one of the year. The next 2 Wednesdays, we're going to have a canned edition, or like just you can watch it instead, which is like a best of the year where we cut things together because we're also going to be traveling. And speaking of traveling, Daniel, you're in Brazil at the moment, aren't you?
I am, yeah. Hence the sun on my face for the first time in 6 months, which is quite nice. But yeah, I won't rub it in, but it's nice to be here.
Well, you will have to rub it in like sunscreen and stuff because a Brit in the sun is not a good idea. So
I'm really
we'll
red.
see. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Mm.
Well, not bad. But yeah, I mean that's a great thing. We can do our job from wherever, and it seems like the internet is stable enough, so we're good. So yeah, we can take a look back at like what we've done, but we put together a best of. Like you cut all these videos together. How
Mm.
was that? Like, how many of the things have
Oh,
you forgotten that you found in the sections that we talked about in the past?
I mean, it's amazing because I think we had, I mean, around obviously 52 shows in the year, one each week. We had, I mean, probably got about 10 topics in each one. So, when you start drilling into each episode, it's amazing the amount of things we've spoken about. And all of the stories, I think I mentioned to you that some of the stories that really took off, and they actually did become important, and then others very typical of the tech industry where, oh, this is a big hype, this is something you need to worry about, something you need to, fear of missing out, you need to start using. And now we're at the end of the year, you see that it was just another hype cycle. So yes, it's always really interesting, and I'm looking forward for everybody seeing these best of episodes because there's so much in there. We have also put together an article, or 3 articles, where we're sharing all of the links for all of the speakers, so you can go and follow them, get them on Blue Sky, Mastodon, LinkedIn, so you can keep in touch with all of your favorite guests.
Excellent. Well, talking of which, we have a guest today as well. So we got Christian Liebel with us from Think Texture, and I think we have him here. Yay! First of all,
Hi.
what's Think Texture? What's Think Texture, and what do you do there?
Oh, a good question. Think Texture is a consulting agency based in Germany, with most of the clients being from either Germany or Austria or Switzerland. And we have focused on web development a little more than 10 years ago, basically back in the should we write a native app or should we use the web for that times. Think Texture always was in team, let's build a web app. And that's also when I joined 11 years ago now. Yeah, so it's been quite a long time already. And I personally am a web developer myself. Also recently, of course, the scope has a little bit shifted over to AI and generative AI and large language models and stuff, and how to integrate that into web applications as well. And that's what I do. I'm a developer, so I can actually build that stuff, but I'm also a consultant. So basically, I visit our clients, try to find out what they need, and then coordinate with their development teams or bring in our own development team, to make their dreams come true, so to say.
I remember agency work and consultancy work was really exciting because you always had to play with new technologies and like not new technologies, but technologies that are new to you. Like you get into the environment and your customer already has a setup. They use a certain technology, they use a certain framework, they use a certain thing, and you have to learn that bit. I remember in an agency, I had like as a lead developer in there, I worked with like 8 different products at the same time, like
Mhm.
languages, environments, like struts, Java, PHP. Some was Ruby, some was that, and I had to pretend in meetings that I know all of those things really well. And it was just fascinating to me to that you learn so much within a year, but you have to keep learning because otherwise you forget about it. And the weirder thing is like when we talked about things that were hot and then people forgot about it. I had to work with all these enterprise content management systems that are all listed on LinkedIn. And now 20 years later, you get like requests, can you maintain that stuff? And I'm like, I haven't touched it in 20 years, so probably not.
Mm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting because you get out of this academic wonderland of what we see web development to be, and you just realize there's a lot of like half-baked rubbish that you have to maintain, right?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, it's the same when it comes down to open source projects, right? So I mean, that's what you typically do, right? So along the time, so to say, you just write a small library, and then people actually start to use it, and then you are basically the guy who has to maintain it. And yeah, I mean, it's the same. the same thing.
Cool. Well, let's take a look at some resources and stuff so we can chat about some things. The first one is JavaScript is now 30 years old. And so it was basically announced that it was written in 10 days by Netscape, by Brennan Eich in Netscape. And yeah, I loved the announcement. That was all like caps back then when it came out. Like, that's the official announcement here. Like, Netscape and Sun announced JavaScript. No, I already paid for that. Okay. And yeah, December the 4th, 1995 is when JavaScript got kind of like set. And I found it fun because they called it JavaScript because Java was cool. Otherwise, it was before that it was called LiveScript in Netscape. And Microsoft had its own JScript later on, which was kind of a different language. And then it took us bloody ages to standardize it because the ECMAScript 1, ECMAScript 2, and then ECMAScript 5 was the first time, like, what is that, 2015 now, when the ECMAScript 6 came out, that basically we had a standardized thing, because in between there was Flash, and that had ActionScript, which was yet another thing. And yeah, I found it fun because when I started using JavaScript early on, I think 1996, I came from Perl to JavaScript. Everybody laughed about it and said like it's never going to be a thing. And now it actually kind of runs the internet. But it is still a mess. You still see the 10 days in the design. Even the dogs get set off by that, obviously. Yeah. So what's your stance on JavaScript? Like, do you think we're overusing it? Do you think there is TypeScript is the savior of that to make it more maintainable? How's your love-hate relationship to JavaScript, Christian?
So I personally love JavaScript. So basically, back in the day when we all started building web apps, like also like large enterprise scale applications, right? Where people said, "Oh, that's never gonna work," right? So this JavaScript, this is for small websites and stuff to make a button blink or whatever, right? So it's not useful for building actual web apps, but we did, and it was even fine actually if you knew like the quirks of the language. And if you knew what you were doing, it was perfectly fine to write like large scale applications with it. That was not an issue at all. However, if you didn't know what you were doing, that could of course lead to like horrible code bases. And yeah, as you said, so I'm in the consulting business, so I've seen many good things, of course, also, but also like code bases that just degraded over time or never really were very good. And in that regard, TypeScript indeed was a great new development. It's of course much more stable, catches so many bugs. I think there's also like this one very well-known blog post where, was it Slack? I think it was Slack, where they said that they caught so many unobvious bugs in their code base when they switched to TypeScript. And so I think nowadays it's like the de facto standard if you write, again, large scale apps, and I think it's for a good reason. So yeah, I think it's good. I like it. I like both.
I think the implementation was kind of a thing that made it look bad. Like, I mean, we had during the first browser wars, we had like the document all for Internet Explorer, and we had document layers for Netscape. And then we finally had the DOM 1 and the DOM 2, so they got standardized by the W3C, and we could do DOM scripting, as we called it, rather than JavaScript writing and random stuff to write out frames in pop-up windows and these kind of things that I had to do in the past. So we had the web evolved, and we didn't have to hack around, and with it, the language kind of evolved. But I guess the problem with JavaScript was always that it's in public, so it's easy to copy and paste random things. So I haven't done it yet, but it would be fun to hunt through the HTTP archive and see how many _mouse over and _mouse out are still there, like from Dreamweaver times or front page extensions kind of stuff. Like people just, it seems like people just added to it rather than just re-architecting it. I think the re-architecture bit in JavaScript just came when TypeScript came out and types became a thing, because people who are used to types are also more like architects than developers, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting thing that 30 bloody years, you know, like it's just incredible to think about. And yeah, I mean, I remember when Java developers laughed at me for like using JavaScript, and now now look at them; they're all unemployed and under the bridge and stuff. So yeah, probably
And
not.
it's actually funny, I guess, right? So that sometimes it's like the not perfect solutions that basically just win the entire game, right? So certainly there have been better programming languages, probably also more stable ones, but in the end, it was JavaScript that won. And so yeah, it's just funny to see. I mean, we have that in many cases, right? Where you also have like what was it, Blu-ray versus DVD, HD, or how was it
DVD.
called?
VHS, yeah, Blu-ray versus
HD.
DVD.
HD DVD,
No,
right? Yeah, or VHS
yeah,
versus the other thing. That's basically
Betamax.
before my
Yeah,
times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like the maybe more hand wavy thing. In that case, that wins.
and sometimes you just have to force a company to do like USB-C, for example, for iPhones now. I mean, I just went through the drawer that every one of us has in their house with every charger for mobile phones and things that we had in the past, and I was just amazed how many power connectors I have for different MacBooks over the years in different formats, like MagSafe 1, MagSafe 2, the 32 pin connectors, and these kind of things. And if you throw it out, you're going to need it in 2 days or something. But
Yeah,
like you
exactly.
just keep it. And that's where standardization comes in and where it's important. I mean, I guess ActionScript had a lot of good stuff for itself. And of course, jQuery then, when I worked on browsers, people always ask me, like, why don't you just embed jQuery in the browser? And you're like, because it's a hack on top of
Yeah.
a hack on top of a hack. And it's actually not. And I guess that JavaScript learned a lot from other languages and from frameworks, especially. Like the query selector API and these kind of things came from jQuery. In jQuery it was called $, and then we call it query selector because you typing a lot of word makes more sense, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting to see that. But yeah, it's talking of frameworks. React had a huge security issue right now that you can just have malicious code executed with malformed HTML, and that's something that actually was part of the outage of Cloudflare, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was like a lot of fixing, and especially Vite and Next.js seems to be having to update at the moment because there was an ongoing security issue with that. And that's always the thing that worries me when people say, like, okay, we just rely on a framework to do everything for us. It's a one source of truth, but it's also one source of attack. Then, there's an opportunity to infect one of those things, and then it goes everywhere. So if you use Next.js right now, I got about 10 emails from Versal that I actually should look at all the stuff that I do. Probably updating our Node.js repos is a good idea as well. Yeah, so that keeps happening right now because we rely too much on frameworks rather than standards. But yeah, the other thing that was interesting, yeah, the other thing that was interesting
I think it was a server component, right? That was also the problem here.
Yeah.
It was not even like the React front end part, but I think it was their React server implementation. But to be honest, I don't use React, so I don't know much about details.
That's tricky though. Like it becomes. I mean, when we talk to people about applying for jobs, they're like, "Well, I need to know React because everybody looks for React developers. Nobody looks for web developers. Nobody looks for a JavaScript developer or TypeScript developer. We always use for frameworks." And it seems to be the self-fulfilling prophecy that HR people say, like, "Oh, we need to put that in to attract the right people," and people that are not interested in doing it and not applying for this job. So that feels like we make it a demand or like a gatekeeping thing without needing to.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. People just recently asked me this. If so, basically, when they should apply for a job, what should they really know? What should they really learn? Like also in the next couple of years, right? And basically, I also said try to learn what the platform gives you, right? So basically, like JavaScript aspect, HTML, CSS, maybe TypeScript, but I think it doesn't make sense to learn about frontends like too much, right? Because you still are basically part of a platform, and to master the platform first before basically adding the next layer on top. And if you are a great web developer, basically the framework shouldn't matter because oftentimes they are interchangeable, right? So the concepts are oftentimes the same, and yeah, basically that was my recommendation to them. But it's interesting to hear that many companies basically ask for like React or Angular developers or what else. Yeah, and that may indeed be a gatekeeping vector.
It felt like a lot like that was being led by the US, that there was this all of the US sort of job adverts that I would see and things like this were all very, very React heavy, especially around sort of 2021, 2022. Yeah, and I feel like in some ways it was just because it was the cool kid on the block, and that it felt like maybe this would be a good investment for the future, and that we were going to move away from platform, and it just being HTML based, JavaScript based. But I think there's no signs of that happening, right? Like you said, it's just a framework is just an option on top. And so why would you start with that? I think that's always been strange when somebody starts with a framework, because I think, how do you know how to fix anything if you don't really know what you're doing? You don't know when something's an abstraction. You don't know what you're actually doing. You're just using hooks that have abstracted away everything. And then when that doesn't work, you have no idea what to do. So it's I think that's very good advice on your part, Christian.
I mean, frameworks are also there for a reason, right? So basically, the apps we build are all built with Angular because it's so much faster also to get to your goal, right? Because of like the structure the framework gives you, or the architecture idea, which is also solid, which makes sense. But again, that all of that doesn't help if you don't know what's happening basically on platform level. There's developers who like seriously also basically basic skills of software development. There have been developers that were totally shocked when I first showed them DevTools, that you can actually debug JavaScript code and what's happening basically underneath. So there's people who've never seen that. And so basically that's why I always recommend try to learn the platform first and then add your things on top.
I think the other thing, of course, was that saying like, I React is done by Meta. So by being a React developer, I get a chance to work for one of these big players at time. Same as Angular with Google, and jQuery with Microsoft back then, funnily enough. And then, of course, Silverlight and .NET with Microsoft as well. So I guess this was also another thing, like the big successful companies use it, so it must be right. And I always found it overshooting the mark. Like I'm like, if you have a blog and you post an article a month as a company, you don't need React because you don't need two-way interaction at all in these things. But they just like, let's put that one in because the big players use it, and that's how we end up with like a completely overcrowded internet with far too much JavaScript. And Alex Russell again had this performance gap thing last week. So we just showed that there's a lot of stuff out there. I found it also interesting.
Alex, by the way, is somebody who doesn't like frameworks at all. So he thinks basically that they should all die, and we should just use the platform. Again, so we are using Angular for all of our web apps. So I think there's a reason to use them, and doing stuff on the web can be really tedious sometimes. I mean, web components, it's great that we have them, but the API is not super polished from basically from my opinion, and using a framework just is much more fun also. And but there's different opinions on that.
I think it's tricky because when we started with web components, we thought, okay, we're going to have like a super button that is just a button is that thing. And that was really hard to put into browsers because the performance of it was absolutely atrocious. With a framework, you don't have that issue because you have a pre-render, or you actually turn it into HTML before you show it to the browser. So you're not on the lowest level. So that's why React components and Angular components and other components were much, much faster and much easier to learn than web components. And I think I said that before in other shows. At one time, we kind of overdid it with the giving people the building blocks of the web. Like we had the open web manifesto, which basically said like we don't want to have a video player, we want to have a video API where you can control every single detail of that. But with that control comes complexity. And when you look at the standards of like web components, I was also like, I ended up making myself a template to actually reuse to start my components from, rather than writing them from scratch. And that feels like using a framework already, because we have too many moving parts. So that's the problem there. but yeah, we wanted that access to the platform, and we have it now. And we said it last week as well. I feel the same about CSS to a degree, like add layers in CSS and these kind of things to get access to the rendering of the browser in CSS feels like a wonderful thing to have, but also like most people will take a look at it like, I have no idea what's going on here, and I feel overwhelmed. There's too many options. There's too many choices. So yeah, it's a tricky one. I found this one interesting, that there was like browser extensions that waited for 2 years to actually execute malware. And that's the thing, the slow burn that we have in security, with a lot of people just like relying on third-party services and these kind of things. Every single time you see a browser extension doing something that feels good and feels like you get free access to something that's paid, it's probably not a good idea to use that thing, because it gives us too much opportunity to actually get access to things where it shouldn't. Because I mean, we had this big discussion about browser manifesto and browser APIs changing and being more security aware. But yes, browser extensions are the #1 reason for bad performance of browsers and security issues out there, because they're very powerful. So before you actually install something that sounds amazing, maybe run it through a debugger. Maybe take a look and ask people like if it really is the right thing to do. But it's a worrying thing that people say like, okay, I'm worried about my privacy. That's why I'm using an ad blocker that sends all my data to China. So it feels very bizarre.
Yeah. Also, basically, this is interesting because oftentimes people say, well, I got it from a store, right? So I downloaded that app from an app store. Ooh, I downloaded that extension from the Chrome Web Store or Edge Store or whatever. That's not a guarantee that you have a bug-free or security issue-free software, as this incident shows.
Yeah, but that was the selling point of the closed platforms, isn't it? Like when they said like, oh, it's curated, and I'm like, well, and then the race started when I did Firefox OS. We like, okay, you only have 50,000 apps on your store, so that's not comparison to 1.7 billion apps on whatever on the other stores. And you're like, why would you 1.7 billion of anything? Like buy a sack of rice. Then you're just like, it's if you want to have thousands of one thing. But it feels really bizarre that people wanted more choice and then wondered why there is like malware slipping through, because there's too many options out there. Seems to be not loading right now. That's supposed to be like a world globe showing where AI jobs are. So I just found this a really nice little visualization. But yeah, let's not do it then. Fine. This was also fun. I keep telling people, if you're going to use an agentic environment, use a bloody Docker image, or use basically have it in a virtualized machine. It feels like, I mean, like, it's just like, okay, let's go to the terminal and paste some random code in. It's probably not a good idea. And the agent doing that feels even more worrisome to me. And I love that basically the agentic AI wiped the entire hard drive. And then like, I'm absolutely devastated to hear this. I can't express how sorry I am. And I'm like, well, that doesn't help me much, does it? Like, but it's pretty bonkers that somebody just basically let an agent run Ramshot on their machine without actually roughshot, without even thinking about it. But this is I guess this is the progress trap, where it's like, it's magical, don't worry about what it does. And you're like, and now I deleted your hard drive. What do we do now?
Yeah, that's a good point, right? So I actually like agentic systems. They are like super cool, and I always think it's like basically if the agent always asks you for permission, that's also basically just bad, right? So is it okay for the agent to access that particular file? Yes. Can it write to that file now? Yes. So basically you don't want to do that. So apparently what that person did was just okay to everything, right? And then apparently it thought it would make sense to wipe the entire hard disk. Yeah, that's basically the trade-off. But I think it's, yeah, as you say, it's still the early stages, I guess, for agentic systems. They are super interesting, and the use cases that you can implement are very promising. But yes, I mean, in the end, it's all based on LLMs and tool calls. And if the LLM runs the wrong tool at the wrong time, then it's probably bad.
It's always that reminder, isn't it, as well? So it's always that reminder that really these LLMs are not as advanced as they, you know, we get it when we use them day to day, right? You ask it something, you've all seen those sort of maths equations that they'll ask it, you know, is how many years ago was 30 years? And then it does this kind of cyclical talking itself into knots before it says, yes, it was actually 30 years ago in 1995. Oh, no, it wasn't. Yes, it was actually. And it reminds us how rudimentary these things really are, that they are, you know, token predictive machines, and they're not really as context aware as we like to think, even when we're giving them, you know, context in terms of the files they can access. So I just think it's very, I get it that everybody's going to want to use the agentic systems, but it feels like we need these guardrails, and that they need to be more widely promoted so that people are sort of comfortable, you know, letting these agentic systems kind of do their magic, if you like, but with some very, very strict guardrails that mean it couldn't do this. Because that's, I mean, it defeats the whole object for me if it can delete your whole drive.
Yeah. And at the same time, they've advanced so much, right? Over the last 3 years, ChatGPT was released like just 3 years ago, right? And how many things happened, and how much have we laughed about like the capabilities of those LLMs, right? For example, when they couldn't calculate at the beginning, which they now can if you have the right setup, basically prepared and stuff. So they've also like come a long way already in just the 3 years that we have this technology now.
But weirdly enough, we're going back to actually making them do things that have worked before. I mean, now ChatGPT, the next version, somebody unpacked the APK of the upcoming Android version, and it shows that's going to be ads inside chats as a way of actually monetizing it. And you're like, really? That's where we're going back to? And I mean, when it said like, and now it allows you to do erotic conversations with an LLM. That was the other big thing. And I'm like, this is just giving up, isn't it? Like we said, like, oh, this is going to be the next level of knowledge. This is the next level of human computer interaction. And then like, what do? We show ads and we allow people to do erotic adult stuff to make sure that people can use it and keep it. So it's really odd, but yeah. Let's do some tools quickly I found this one really, really cool. This is tunnel.gg. And what it allows you to do is if you have a local machine running, if you have a local server running, you normally, when you want to show it to somebody, you have to build it, put it on the live server, put it on staging, put it on dev machine or whatever. But with this one, it's just one SSH command. So it's basically if you have some code, like I have an app running here, and I run the HTTP server, I can now go to localhost 8080 to see the thing. So if I now go to the browser again and I go to localhost 8080, I see my shuffling thing from last week that I had there. Now, what Tunnel allows you to do is actually if you just open another terminal and you just do this one command where basically you say, oops, SSH -T R80, which means the forward to port 80 of localhost 8080 to proxy tunnel.gg. And then it actually gives you a fingerprint. Yes, fine. And then it gives you this URL here that is temporary. And just basically you can go copy that one, go back to the browser, and then anybody can now try this one out. Oops. Why is it not doing that? Oh, you're using a tunnel site. I understand. Continue to the site. And this is now a URL that's available to the web pointing to this laptop. So yeah, don't do that with like things that are in insecure environment, or like you make sure that your code is not like that's possible to inject XSS stuff. But it's a really, really simple way to actually forward this URL to the world out there. There's also in Visual Studio Code, there's port forwarding built in. So if you now press Command C, Control C, that is not working anymore and the URL is gone. You can also do port forwarding in it. Didn't work earlier, so weirdly enough. So I've got 8080 running here and I want to forward that one. It now gives me this URL and I have to set the visibility to not private, but send it to public. And continue, yes, all fine, copy that one. And that should also work now. If I try that one again. Yeah, so that one is basically giving you an Azure redirect as well. So that's built into Visual Studio Code. But I found it very useful, but I also found it kind of trickier. I like that SSH forwarding seems to be much more forward and much easier to use. So in this case now, if you delete that one, then that URL will be dead again as well, and it will not be available to the outside world. But it's a very simple way to get your local host available to the outside world, that tunnel.gg, which I found just the other day, and it's just using SSH. It's not using any third-party service. It's not doing anything. The port forwarding in VS Code, you have to sign in to GitHub to make it happen, because GitHub gives you an Azure instance that they throw away again. So that kind of stuff. That I loved as well. Like there's a queue unit in CSS that actually is a bit like Pixel, but it looks almost the same and saves one character when you actually type it in. And we can do a special on that because there's like 72 different types now in CSS. But it's fun that people just say this, like, what is queue? And I love that you can define inches in CSS as well. I don't know why, or centimeters, because for print layouts, I guess. But yeah, you can put these all in there, and like it's interesting that these things exist. And
Indeed.
if you want to waste some time, there's a wonderful website called Boing, which allows you to boing the thing, and then you can say like you're boing it how many times, and it shows how many people in the world actually boinged. And you had like you can have a slow-mo as well.
Love it.
And you have a heat map where it boinged as well. So that was the other interesting thing. So
that's a clever addition. That could, yeah. How many are there? 2.5 million times. So yeah. The thing is, you put a red dot there, you just have to do it, don't you? It's like saying don't press the red button, you know? You have to grab it and see what it does.
Right.
Sometimes I find apps that are just like, okay, that's weird. So there's a daily walking route generator. That's an app that gives you a circular route around your neighborhood when you go to work to basically use random side streets and stuff. And yeah, it's fascinating that these things exist, that somebody has actually built this app and somebody's paying for it to recognize your own neighborhood, that hyper localized. I've got my own app that shows me random side streets in my neighborhood if I go out for a walk, and that's that one, because she always goes like different side streets and doesn't want to know what has no idea where it's going, and like, let's try this street, let's try that street. But if you want to spend money, you can always use an app like that as well. This is a useful one. Debug Bear now has tests to first byte from multiple locations. So if I do like christianheimer.com, for example, it's basically testing the time to first byte, 300 milliseconds. It's good. Apparently, my server is in Atlanta, United States, and you can basically see from different places how many milliseconds it took to get there. And this was probably part of web page tests or these kind of things as well. But that's a really nice little service to get this, to see why people in some countries take ages to see your stuff and others don't. Like Bangalore's 1 second. That's not good, but yeah, I guess. And you, of course, Debug Bear then advertises their own stuff, but it's very cool to have this little tool. I mean, I don't mind too much because I write a blog, and but like I don't have an app. But do you have lots of customers that actually painstakingly look at time to first byte and these kind of things? It's easy to get down the rabbit hole of performance, but I always wonder like how many of the end users out there, customer end users, are as excited about it as the performance community is.
I guess it really depends. So most of our clients, they build like, let's say, internal apps. And so basically the time to first byte doesn't really matter because it's oftentimes in a corporate network anyway. But then, of course, we have those clients. For example, if you build a web shop, right, that is international, then you want to be super quick and fast, regardless of the region. In that case, it makes sense. But I guess at least from my perspective, most web developers don't care that much because their audience is like very regional, oftentimes.
But yeah, I found I'm excited about performance, and I've been doing it for a long time, but I'm getting overwhelmed with all these 3-letter and 3-letter to 5-letter acronyms.
You're right. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
it's like, what the hell is TTFB? What is this? What is this? What is this? It
Yeah.
feels like we're trying to make clever acronyms that must give us mnemonics and like learning things, but I'm just overwhelmed. I don't know what they are any longer.
Yeah, same. So Core Web Vitals was like a similar initiative, right? Which also has like various abbreviations, which I can also not recall. I mean, it's important. It's also cool to have it in DevTools. You can just run the audit, right? And you will get some results. So for example, I have one app, my Paint.js demo, for example. I also basically tried to optimize this, so it has like a score of 100 in all of the categories that Lighthouse gives you. But yeah, you can certainly overdo it. I agree.
I found that thing when we worked in the developer tools in Edge and people looked at Lighthouse. I find this a very dangerous thing with the 100% bit. Like people then start gaming rather than debugging their stuff to get like a 100% score. And Markus Matusovic, no, not Markus Matusovic, anyways, he just made this website that's completely invisible. It's completely inaccessible, but it's got a 100% score on Lighthouse.
Yeah.
So I find that like as soon as you do put a percentage on something or you give people medals for something, like a peace prize or something like that, then they actually will do anything to actually achieve that rather than do sensible things to achieve the thing. So it feels weird to have this kind of stuff, but yeah. This was really cool as well. Internet Archive created a plugin for WordPress that is a machine link fixer. So basically, when there is old blog posts that you have, like me from 2005, and I link to something, and it's a 404, it would then automatically give you the cached version of the Internet Archive, rather than you having to do that yourself. And I think it might be a performance problem to analyze all the links while you're rendering, but like at the same time, I find it really cool because cool links shouldn't die, but they keep dying. So that's the problem there. And I found it interesting that the Internet Archive now basically just work together with Automatic to release that kind of thing. I always get these SEO people that say like, "Oh, I found a broken link on your blog, and you can actually this article is not available anymore. My company does the same thing. Can you do that?" And it's always just like, it's the June 2007 archive overview page of my blog, and I'm like, no, that's not really a broken link in one of my articles. That's just basically the archive thing, and you just want to have my SEO juice for your thing, so to say. And that is a great way of actually making sure that these things don't happen any longer and people have no annoyance about it. But yeah, the Internet Archive is a fascinating thing, how it became from the rebels of the internet that archived things that shouldn't be archived because the companies couldn't archive them themselves, to become like the Google Cache link now, because Google Cache doesn't exist anymore and it redirects you to Internet Archive.
Yeah, it's really cool to have it. It's awesome.
Yeah, also to see like what your stuff looked like that you forgot about. Like, I mean, when I look at my blog from 2005 and stuff, and it's sometimes wonderfully embarrassing, but that was the passion of the time, so it's all good.
And it's also good that there's a WordPress plugin, right? Because there's so many blogs that run on WordPress. I think we even have a number for that. For this, let me look it up in the meantime.
Yeah.
Or do you know it by heart? Maybe how many % of pages are running on WordPress? It's many.
I think it's about 60% of the internet or something. Like,
I also would have thought like 70 or so, but let me check. I will do it in parallel.
I'm going to say 40. I'm going to go low. I'm going to say 40%.
Okay.
I think that's also the reason why in every JavaScript state of JavaScript, there's jQuery still being so high, because that's basically part of the WordPress core. So it's not that people write jQuery, it's just like they have a WordPress instance in it. So this is a fascinating one where it's like a text gibberifier, which blocking AIs from reading your text by adding invisible Unicode characters in there. So basically it's putting like the non-breaking space, the non-white space, blah, whatever in there. and you can get it here, and it's human readable, but for the Unicode characters, what the AI sees are those. Now, I think this is kind of cool, and of course there's an extension for it, because why not? Because you want probably some random stuff. But my problem, I think, is like if I now try to do that with developer tools, and I haven't even tried it yet, I'm just assuming right now that actually it will be absolute mess for screen readers as well, right?
That would be exactly that would have been my question. Does it still work with screen readers?
Yeah, because I mean, if we block AIs, that's fine, but if we also block people, that's not fine.
Yeah.
So let's take a peek. What's going on there?
And it's the real kind of risk of all this, isn't it? Is that we're trying to battle against these AI systems. You know, if you're trying to protect your content, and like you're saying, it's then the collateral damage is going to be the inaccessibility. You know, or accessibility rather. There has to be a better way, right? And I'm hoping that we're just in the early days when all of this scrappy kind of, you know, off, I don't know what the word would be, sort of unofficial ways of doing things are kind of hopefully going to settle down, and we can find a way of. I mean, Cloudflare have done something. You know, I know they've kind of tried to give people more choice about having their content crawled and turning off the kind of not allowing AI LLMs to actually read the content or ingest it or index it. And hopefully there's something in that, because this is a great idea, but it can't be the best solution, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it also feels like extra. This also feels like a lot of extra content that might be weird. But he tested it against different systems, so it says like ChatGPT, Cloud Crash, and so on. So he tries it with different ones. It's interesting to see. But yeah, he also in the comments on GitHub, he says he's worried about the accessibility of it. So let's give it a test, I guess.
It's funny that Meta AI just crashes. That is actually pretty pretty funny. We just discussed this. Right. This year during TPAC, the W3C annual conference, and that was also like one of the main questions. So what people currently do, interestingly, is hide instructions for AI agents in the accessibility attributes that we have. So basically, where the accessibility attributes get the API to talk to an agent, and that is of course problematic if you have people that rely on those tags, right, to be filled in a way that makes sense for humans also. And that's basically that's the exact opposite that we see here, right? Trying to make it invisible for AI agents, but you also make the situation worse for people that rely on accessible technology. Also,
so people use like ARIA title and stuff for prompts. Oh god.
Yep.
Wow.
That's title remembered. Like, I mean, remember, title attribute was a problem that it always showed up. That it was basically as soon as something becomes UI, people write random things in there rather than things that make sense for people who cannot see. Like, and I guess in this case, it's like, I mean, every app uses the accessibility APIs of the operating system to get access to things they shouldn't get to or should be hard to get to. Like any screen recording app uses the accessibility APIs to access your microphone and your camera because the OS is too restrictive to do it. So, I mean, it's great that people learn about these things, but then they abuse it for things that are SEO-ish rather than human-ish.
And this is what we currently see there. So it's indeed just. It's basically all of the AI agents out there currently rely on the accessibility tree. So they don't read necessarily like they don't make screenshots. They can also do that, but it's super slow. And so that's it's easier for them to just read the accessibility tree from the DOM, so to say. And then that's what people do. They now just pollute the ARIA tags and feed in info that is interesting for agents, but probably not for people. On CMS adoption, I just looked it up. So numbers from last year, it was 51% of CMSs for, like, let's say all websites. So basically 51% are CMS, 49 are not CMS. And the total WordPress number was like 35%. So not my 70. I think, what did you say, Daniel? I think you said 40, right?
40. Yeah. I think
awesome.
I'm cheating a little bit. I think I remember reading that at some point, but still, it's quite staggering. It's a high number still.
I also still question that number because a lot of people would use WordPress, but then use a caching mechanism and Cloudflare on top of it. So basically, it looks like static pages that are not static.
Yep.
So WordPress might still be the page generator rather than the live CMS, because you don't want your SQL database to be hammered by everything. I mean, I'm using Supercache as well. So basically, it's static HTML pages rather than like accessing the DB with every request. So that might be the other thing there. But yeah, it's we had an SEO geo expert a few weeks ago here, and he was just ranting about WordPress being horrible. So that was an interesting one. I didn't know that. We might get somebody from Automatic in. It might be interesting to see, because I've always been a WordPress org person. I host it myself. I never used WordPress.com. But a lot of people are doing that. It's interesting that when Medium came out, and Medium basically said, like, we're going to be the new thing for publishing. And then it became like, okay, now you can make people have to pay for it. And it became very closed again for some reason. It had the chance to be the new thing, but because the editor and especially the in-context commenting on Medium, I found a very, very cool UI. But yeah, weirdly enough. So last time I have a present for Dan. There's a PlaceCats API that if you need to actually put images onto your API, you can just use PlaceCat. And that one basically gives you random cat pictures. And I love that there's a few of those APIs, like there was in the past, and a lot of them have gone away. But there's also the dog API, which I use for everything. Was it dog.ceo, I think? Yeah, the dog CEO, which is a fake magazine, and it has this dog API that allows you to actually upload pictures of your dog, which I've done. I don't know if PlaceCats does that as well, but yeah, it's an API that exists, so that's pretty cool to have. And the more APIs we still have that are not that, the better, because I mean, now people say like, oh, just use an MCP, just use an agent to build these things for you. But I like open APIs. I like API access to things rather than scraping a service and getting some random data back. Why not give me an API to just get the data? But I guess that ship has sailed. Now, talking about you now for the last 12 minutes of our show. TAG, what is it?
Yeah, it's the technical architecture group of W3C. It is, so to say, the architecture board of the World Wide Web. Has a long history. It launched in 2001. To basically make sure that the web develops in the right direction. It's 12 people globally, and they are. It's awesome. I really like this the phrase here. They are working to safeguard and extend the web through coordination, collaboration, and review. And this is what we do. So people are, for example, sending in design reviews. That can be people from browser vendors, but can also be just like the normal web developer, let's say. And the tag will have a look at them. For example, in Chromium-based browsers, there's a certain launch process, and they, for example, require you to have a tag review before that particular API will ship, or whatever feature will ship in the browser. And yeah, basically our task is to make sure that the web continues to stay relevant, is powerful enough, but also basically keeps its core characteristics, like being decentralized, being open, being democratic also. Yeah, that is our task. And
you stop, collaborate, and listen.
Say again?
Yeah. You stop, collaborate, and listen. Yeah. Like, anyways, what I loved about this was seeing you in this, because I've been part of that incrementally as well. I was W3 member in some work groups and stuff like that. And it was always people from either browsers or from academia who actually are in this team. And that was one of the big criticisms of the W3C in the past, that it's too academic, too removed from the day-to-day deliveries that we have to have. And it's cool to see you now being nominated in that and actually being part of this, because you're going to bring the real life problems into the discussion. And it's like, okay, I guess sometimes the W3 tries to solve problems that occur 5 years from now. But then we're like, where's the web payment API that people want to use instead of Stripe right now? And so I guess this is where you see your strengths coming in, or is it something that I just assumed you now?
No, that's exactly the point. So basically, people actually approached me and said, "Hey, couldn't you imagine like running for this for the tag?" And I thought, well, I mean, that's like as you say, right? That's for people from like Google and Microsoft and stuff. So what should I do there? But then basically, I talked to the tag chairs back in the day, and they and then we talked, and then basically they said you would be a great fit for the tag, exactly because of that, because we don't have like people from the like real world right on the tag. I think it's still the case that that oh yeah, I love that. I think it's still the case that and it's good, right? That vendors are on the tag. It's important. Basically, the web community is always users, developers, and vendors and academia, and they all need to work together. And it was also hard. So this was my second time running now. I made it this time. My term will start on the 1st of February next year. And I ran basically already last year. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty high competition. Also, it's also like many good people, and when you are on the ballot, basically it says like that person from Google, that person from Microsoft, that person from Mozilla, and Christian from ThinkTexture, right? Which nobody nobody knows. Nobody knows what ThinkTexture does. And of course, they also then tend to vote the more well-known people, and also like the from the more well-known companies. But it worked out this time, and yeah, I think I'm also like the only person from the European Union in there, apart from our team contact, Eve. So yeah, I try to bring in the voices from developers from the EU side. That's my goal.
So what does it mean in terms of like your work effort? Like how much time do you have to put into it? And does your company, do you get paid for that, or does the company give you free time for it, or how does that work out?
Yeah, indeed, my company needs to pay also. So it's indeed a role that is for free. But fortunately and also thankfully, ThinkTexture pays for also the necessary travel. We have like 2 or 3 face-to-faces a year, and also provides the time that I need for this. Basically, it's somewhere between like half a day and a full day. Maybe more towards the full day. So let's say approximately 20% then of my time. We have 3 breakout sessions a week, and then basically whatever we need to do, like carrying out the design reviews, yeah, talking also to other vendors, to developers and stuff. That's all part of that. And I
always
also
found
did
it
it.
weird
Sorry, yeah.
that the offsites are always like completely offsite, like Tokyo and these kind of things. Like it's like the W3C is really worldwide. It seems like that they're sending you to places all around the world for having a one-day meeting.
It is. Well, fortunately, it's like 4-day meetings, so at least that. But yeah, they are all over the world. So I mean, the TPAC just recently was in Kobe in Japan. The year before was Anaheim, so LA basically. Then next year it's in Dublin. So yeah, it's indeed it's a global role. It's an international role, and yeah, pretty cool. I also did sort of like this role already, like over the last year. So the tag was also super kind to create a new program called Tag Associates, where they basically added. It's also on this website. Maybe you can open that. It's if you go to the burger menu at the top. I think we have the. Is it working with tag? I guess like the first link. That's a little bit like not indented. Yeah, well, whatever. So basically, they introduced an associates program where I could basically already do what the tag does, but without basically a voting seat, so to say,
Hours.
without voting powers, right? And so I already carried out design reviews for the last year, also like very highly political ones. Prompt API was one of them. That's a built-in AI initiative by the Chromium-based browser, so the Google and Microsoft side, to bring a local language model API right inside the browser, so to say. So we carried out that. Maybe the next controversial API is digital credentials, where which you may know, Daniel, if you are from the UK, from this new like law where vendors or service providers have to verify your age, for example, where you can then basically use your on-device identity cards to prove your age or to prove your address or whatever. That was also highly controversial. Because it has its use cases, of course, but it's also horrible if now every page starts to ask for your identity card. And that's, basically stuff that we discuss and where we try to form an opinion on.
Now, let's be a prophet of doom for a moment. Like, I mean, of course, you would be positive about it, and I'm still positive about it as well. But I've seen last year the open web die really brutally. Like, I mean, especially with like search going all into like, we don't give you links anymore. We don't give you resources to other pages. We just give you an AI statement that may or may not be true. And people going into ChatGPT is the first thing of interaction. Like, how can we make sure that the web doesn't go away the way it does right now, or doesn't become like a specialist playground for the indie web folk, and the mainstream is using X instead of the web? Like, what can we do to make sure that the platform that an open platform stays open?
Yeah, this is a very good question. And also, I'm not so super sure how we can make that, how we can ensure this, right? So, I mean, it's basically on all of us, right? So every one of us decides if, like, let's say, platforms like this are successful, if we really just want to browse the web through Perplexity and ChatGPT and Gemini and Copilot and that sorts of stuff. It also is certainly heading in that direction. If you see like agentic browsers also, that's already happening. It's already a thing. I mean, it's still all is based on the open web. So, and also like from the tech side, we will basically do what we can to keep it like that. But for example, OpenAI or let's say Anthropic are not members of W3C. Basically, they use and apply web technology, but outside of the standards organization, for example, which is also a problem. And stuff like the area tags that I mentioned before. So yeah, I guess we will see where it goes, and every one of us again plays a role in that. Yeah.
But again, I'm very excited to see you there because it's a fresh of breath air in terms of like, I mean, W3C has been accused of being ivory tower of like only people that work in browsers and like an echo chamber of people that actually solve their own problems. So bringing you in there, that brings the outside needs to people. I find that very, very cool. And I find it I'm looking forward to see what you can do, and no pressure at all. But yeah, it's interesting to see that these things happen right now. And yeah, I mean, maybe the W3C needs to find something. And Mozilla is now pivoting into the AI world as well, and actually wants to do things there. But every time I hear regulation of AI, I hear the tech bros of the Silicon Valley actually throw up and not wanting it. So that's a tricky one. We're accelerating into a future right now without thinking much about it. And as much as standard bodies feel weird, and especially ones that you have to pay to be a member of as well, I guess that's also another problem with W3C, that basically you just cannot just be part of it as a company without actually being paying a membership fee. But it's an interesting thing to see where this will go. And yeah, it's good to see that you have day-to-day deliveries sorted. So maybe doing proper UX or proper developer research of the stuff will make the next standards more applicable as well. And yeah, like as you said, a lot of these APIs become very political because we're in a world where openness is seen as dangerous, and like we want people to know what they're doing online, and that is completely against what the online open web is.
Yes. So that's also why I considered stuff like digital credentials like harmful. Like the overall tech opinion is like satisfied with concerns, but basically this is also what I feel, and I also try to actively voice this. Another proposal, for example, is web install. So where basically your app can suggest itself to be installed on operating system level, so to say. That is something that developers wanted for 10 years now. And I'm currently actively working to make it happen, right? So I talk to the vendors, basically try to find out where the common ground is, and yeah, it's quite positive. So it's good prospect, so to say, that we will get this feature, for example, finally. And so, yeah, I'm always interested also what developers think. So also basically to everyone watching this or watching it later, if you need stuff from the web that is there or not working properly, then feel free to reach out so that I can bring it to TAG or the vendors or whatever is needed to make it happen. Also, just on W3C, you have to pay in order to be a member. I'm not quite sure if that's what you said, but basically I just wanted to confirm that you need to be a member and you need to pay your membership fees to be a part of W3C and actually have a voice inside of W3C.
I mean, the Edge block just announced the web install API as a origin trial, so they seem to be the first one to get into that. And I remember when I worked on that team, like, yeah, we need to do this because, yeah. But then, I mean, installing on macOS is now basically, why don't you use our store instead? And you're like, because I don't wanna, and I don't want developers to have to sign their app with a certain company for $100 just to release something. So that feels the weird bit there, but yeah, it's an interesting, back and forth.
We have everyone on board. So Microsoft, Apple, Google, Mozilla, they all want to do this, and the only question is how. And so, yeah, we're trying to solve it. And you don't need to sign it.
The other danger that I see is whenever we invent something cool in the W3C as a standard, the only person that actually use it are the malicious code developers. I mean, prompt API is one thing that's coming now, but I mean, have you ever had a notification on a website that you wanted to see? Or is it just all these websites that you read one article and you're like, do you want to turn on notifications? And you're like, I haven't even read the article yet. It's the new pop-up. It feels like all these things are used by malware developers first, and then developers start embracing it. That's a longer discussion, I think, because as a community, as a web development community, we've always been bad about telling people when they can start using things. The React world has never cared. They basically always go like, okay, it's working, fine. It might not be working for some users, but in the W3, in the web development community, especially the accessibility community, something cool comes out. Date picker is now in HTML. And you can count on your fingers until the first blog post comes out. Here's the 2 things where it's not accessible, so you can't use it yet. And this is what LLM indexes and then tells people later on that like the web is perpetually not working rather than just use the web and it works kind of thing. So we're too good for our own in our showing our flaws of the platform to the world. That is, instead of people just embracing them. So that's an interesting endless loop, I think, that we have. But anyways, this was the last show before the holidays, and so let's end on a more positive thing. Again, it's great to see you in there to bring the voice of the people in there. And yeah, I mean, what's your last message for our friends and families out there that are listening to us right now? You said they can contact you. How can they contact you? What's the easiest way? I guess as your German fax, probably.
No, I don't. I no longer have a fax, unfortunately. But they can just Google my name, and they will certainly find me. So I'm on all of the relevant messaging platforms, and also like LinkedIn and stuff. So yeah, or on the thinktecture.com website. What are my last words? Also for your for this episode, the last episode of the year. Let's try and keep the web open, keep it powerful, and keep it relevant for everybody.
How about you, Dan?
I like it. Same sort of thing, really. I would just say that, looking back, as we said, on the year, yes, the web has had its ups and downs, but I don't think it's dead. And I think that the next year, we could be sat here 12 months from now and be looking at a very, very different state of things. And hopefully, if Christian has his way, it will be in the right direction. So, congratulations, being a part of TAG, and looking forward to seeing what you can do.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, that's it. So we see you next year, and we basically then see you at the Congress and see you in America, see you in India. We're going worldwide this year, so this is not at all freaking me out, but it's going to be interesting. Christian, thanks so much. This was great. We're going to edit this up and upload it to all the platforms that are out there. That's it from us today. So thanks very much. See ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.